Right, welcome to the next part, and this is basically more dinosaur investigations. But this dinosaur thing ties in with end times, biblical end times scenarios and all this. Now, this is interesting piece of hex, right? Because I think this was released on Christmas Eve or the day before Christmas Eve or something, right? And obviously, the Chris Rea is known for that song about driving home about Christmas, right? So it coincided this piece of hex, right, with the Christmas idea, right? And of course, the other song, or this one, I was Road to Hell, right? So probably it's more to do with Road to Hell idea than what it is driving home about Christmas, right? And fool if you think it's over there, so you're probably still alive. You know what I mean? But the age of 74, which becomes 11, right, is very interesting. Because 6 of 5 is also 11, right? And this is the year the dinosaurs went extinct idea, right? So you got your 11 to deal with that, which is obviously a polarization number, like 911, right? Which is obviously your two pillars of the masonry, G and B, right? Boaz and Jacqueline, right? So both them, those numbers correspond to 11, right? And again, right, this is type idea of polarizing one side against another, so it become like a race, race war idea. So you got Chris Rea, or Chris Rea, race, right? So you got Road to Hell, right? Again, you're seeing the 11 there, right? And the lyrics here, right? Okay, this ain't no technological breakdown. This ain't no upwardly mobile freeware, right? This is basically relating to internet. These things relates to internet. This is the Road to Hell, right? So basically using internet to obviously whip up a type of idea that there's like a race war going on, etc. Right? Like for example, X. Now if you look on that X, it's all pitting off one side against another, right? Just like the letters to Mazzini by Albert Pike, like the pitting off Islam against Christianity idea, right? Basically, why they call that X, they call it platform X, previously Twitter, of course, and now X, is following this Aleister Crowley type of thing, X. So it's basically used for pure hex, right? And they're basically pitting off Islam against Christianity, which is the religious war idea, right? Which of course is what's written in this, Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini thing and all that, right? So it's just following the script line, 100%, right? Now, as I say, the dinosaur thing is relating to end of times, biblical rapture, and all that stuff, right? So basically, when you have that song, about the open the door, get on the floor, right? It's talking about opening the doors into different lands, right? The multiculturalism, right? Now, where obviously the religious type of war is obviously garbage, but the multiculturalism is real, And instead of annihilating species via warfare and nuclear bombs and all this, right? Which is obviously encompassed in that idea about a 3-minute warning and a sort of, like a twinkling of an eye nuclear bomb, right? It basically takes the idea of a very slow creep, right? And just an erosion, like an erosion, like on the face of a rock, like a water drips onto a rock face. Eventually it erodes, right? And wears it doing smooth over a long time, like thousands of years possibly, and all that, right? That's what it's doing. It's like a cultural erosion followed by basically an annihilation of species, which is obviously what happens afterwards, right? When you take this dinosaur type of idea, right, it's relating to the European, right, and the extinction event which supposedly happened to these dinosaurs, right? The extinction event is multiculturalism. Again, right, this ties with the idea of the nuclear weapons idea, right? If you remember Missile Command on the Atari or something, this type of thing is basically coming off that Missile Command, right? An extinction event, Basically, it's not going to be a big nuclear bomb. It's going to be like a slow, multiculturalist immigration erosion, right? Here again, right, saying more good paleogene or pale gene, like pale skin, right? Pale genetics. Obviously double hex and 7-5 for your 12 again, right? Or your 21. Dinosaur, right? A becomes E, right? European, right? Because lower case D become turn around for P, right? So European, right? Again, we can considering this extinction event stuff, right? And end times, biblical end times, right? In the twinkling of an eye, the last trumpet, right? And of course, this is to do something with Donald Trump. You got Donald Trump in the thing, right? But as it says, it's instantaneous change, right? Which is, it's referring again to the being a trans, right? So the idea of the nuclear bombs and etc. is fake, right? There's no quick change, it's very slow, right? I say the rapture, like velociraptors out of the Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park. Now as you see, right, this one here, 1 day is worth 1,000 years in God's word, right? Indicating that God's perspective on time is far different from human understanding, right? So you're talking about 3-minute warnings and 4-minute warnings and nuclear bomb ideas, right? So basically, 1 day is as 1,000 years, right? So what's what's 3 minutes in terms of turned into with this comparison? 1 day is 1,000 years. What's 3 minutes, right? So anyways, I can't work that one out. You obviously have to be very good at mathematics to But as you see this, 1977, 4-minute warning, right? So again, right, if one day equals 1,000 years, right? What's that in terms of 40 years or something? I don't know, something like that, right? So basically, there's a coded time limit on that, or the time scenario of how long it takes to multiculturalize a country, right? And basically put everything in place for an extinction scenario, right? Here's more code, right? Again, this was mentioned in that song about the dinosaur open the door, right? To mass immigrations and all this, right? But when you have Islam, right? Right? You have the slam the door, right? You slam the door. So basically, this Islam's got to have been created in order to get massive amounts of multicultural immigration over into the European countries, right? So I can only surmise that it was created specifically for the task of annihilating the European race. You open the doors and then slam the doors shut once you're in, So they're not planning to leave, they're not planning to leave. Here you see Book of Leviticus, right? 19. Curve 19, if you remember that, right? 33 and 70. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. Well, I don't know about that one, like. So you can see how the PSYOP, this really, how they've worked Islam idea into the PSYOP, right? That's what the response should be. But instead, opening the doors, So you can see that it's basically a piss take against the Europeans. It total piss take. Again, we're following Crowleyan like magic methods, right? Same with the Egypt idea, which is obviously the aftermath of the extinction scenario, right? The rebuilders Egyptian, this ancient Egyptian thing, right? As mentioned in the plans. Couldn't have. Now this bring the Jurassic Park, right, which was obviously a big movie, right? Of course, you got that element of it, right? But you got other things like, for example, there's no doubting about the type of people who made it, right? But interestingly, Richard Attenborough, also Don Gandhi, right? John Hammond. Settler. But obviously, right, this was about the keepers, keeping the dinosaurs, right, in a park, right? So it's referring to the type of the European people, right? They're the keepers, right? Keeping these dinosaurs or Europeans in a park, right? Amusement park. So again, it's like a piss take of European peoples, right? And when we say the cloning ideas, again, how they're taking certain ones and making, putting them into their program to keep as pets, right? But the other ones are for extinction type idea, you know. Yeah, I mean, you have the sort of sick idea and that, like healing the sick, and the cisgender, you know. So when you get, when them co-opt through the masonry, like Europeans, into their program, and basically consider it Jesus healing the sick, the cis. Again, like this concept, I'm not sure if they were real or whatever, but they're in that Jurassic Park movie. Again, this is sort of the day with that rapture idea of end times, right? I mean, obviously, fear gas, but supposed to be real, right? Again, what you're talking about with these is something to do with reptile versus, like more of a monkey type of thing, right? See there, rapture and end times. So basically, when you have this type of lizard idea, reptilian and lizard, thing, right? As popularised by David Icke, obviously, right? And as you see, developed during the colonisation of Africa, right? Again, this stuff's all questionable past, right? But it's all linked in because obviously David Icke had his mate who was Credo Mutwa or something, who was a Zulu, right? And when they're going on about these reptilians, it's Europeans. They're taking a piss out of the European race, calling them reptiles, right? And again, it's tying in with the idea of being a dinosaur facing extinction, right? Lizard people. It's a piss take of Europeans, right? Versus the other type of mammalian type of concept there, referring to the Eastern peoples, That's what it is, right? So all this type of idea, the elites as reptiles, is basically throwing all the blame for things onto, again, this sort of idea of white race, right? It's always why I had these type of concepts like, Godzilla versus King Kong. It's about the battle of species, right? To have these ideas, right? Obviously, as exemplified by Darwin, Charles Darwin, and Erasmus Darwin, and all this, right? About different evolutions, right? It's about the battle of species, right? This is the way to view it. Symbolises the Islam v Christianity.